I spent the last 20 days testing and ranking Alhaitham's best weapons, artifacts, and teams. I tested everything from the 1-star weapon, the Dull Blade, to the 5-star Skyward Blade. For the artifacts, I tested everything from Gladiator's Finale to Gilded Dreams, and everything in between. The results for the best teams might surprise you, so watch until the end. You don't want to miss anything. But first, let's go over the basics. How does Alhaitham work? Alhaitham is a 5-star sword-wielding Dendro character from Sumeru. He is a hypercarry, so he needs to stay on-field during combat to be the most effective. His skill and burst can infuse his attacks with Dendro, which makes him excellent at causing Dendro-related reactions. He can also be very helpful while exploring the overworld. While holding his skill, you enter an aiming mode. When you release his skill, Alhaitham will teleport a short distance in the direction you aimed. He's a scribe at the Academia, so this skill can be quite useful when he needs to reach a book high up on a shelf.
Here you are.
After tapping or holding his skill, you will gain up to 2 Dendro Biscuits. These odd-shaped crackers are called Chisel Light Mirrors. You can have up to 3 at a time. You can gain the 3rd mirror from his passive talent, for Casual Correction, by performing a charged or plunging attack. A mirror can be obtained this way once every 12 seconds. Just be careful if you try to eat one. They have sharper corners than a wheat thin. Each mirror will last up to 4 seconds and will disappear one after the other. All mirrors will be removed if Alhaitham leaves the field. If you don't have any mirrors when you use his skill, you will gain 2 Dendro Biscuits, mirrors. If you already have a mirror or 2, then you will only generate 1 Chisel Light mirror. So long as you have at least 1 mirror active, Alhaitham's normal, charged, and plunging attacks will be infused with Dendro. This cannot be overridden, so no need to worry if you want to use him with C6 Bennett. While attacking with the mirror active, every 1.6 seconds the Dangerous Biscuit will unleash a projection attack that deals Dendro damage in a small area in front of Alhaitham. The Dangerous Biscuit's projection attack damage scales from 3 different sources. 1. How many biscuits? There I go again. I'm starting to get hungry now. What I mean to say is the projection's attack damage scales from how many mirrors there are. 2. From Alhaitham's attack, and 3 from Alhaitham's Elemental Mastery stat. Of the 3, the biggest multiplier is Elemental Mastery. And because of his next passive talent, Mysteries Laid Bare, Elemental Mastery is Alhaitham's main stat. This passive talent will increase the damage dealt by projection attacks and his burst by 0.1% for each point of Elemental Mastery that Alhaitham possesses. If you have 1000 EM on him, you can receive the maximum damage bonus of 100%. Now, some of Alhaitham's damage does scale from his attack stat, so it's important to find a balance between EM and attack. But Elemental Mastery should be one of your main priorities when building him. You'll see what I mean later in this video. His final passive talent gives you a 10% chance to receive double the product when Alhaitham crafts weapon ascension materials. Activating Alhaitham's burst makes him go into a rage where he unleashes dozens of his Dangerous Biscuits upon his foes, in a decent range. You can make him throw out even more biscuits if you have a few of these Chisel Light Mirror Biscuits active before initiating his burst. If you have 3 mirrors when you activate his burst, he will unleash 10 instances of Dangerous Biscuit attacks. However, he won't generate any additional biscuits. Mirrors. If you have 2 mirrors, he will deal 8 attacks and will generate 1 mirror 2 seconds after initiating his burst. 1 active mirror will result in 6 attacks and will generate 2 mirrors. Finally, if you don't have any mirrors active when using his burst, he will only deal 4 attacks, but will generate 3 mirrors in return. Unlike his skill's projection attacks, these Dangerous Biscuit attack instances from his burst scale more from his attack than his Elemental Mastery. But because his second passive talent increases both his burst and skill damage based on how much EM he has, it's still best to prioritize Elemental Mastery over attack for Alhaitham. Again, you'll see what I mean a bit later. Like most of my 5-star characters, he doesn't have any of his constellations unlocked, so I might not be the best person to explain them. However, in my opinion, all of his constellations are excellent. With his C1, once per second you can decrease his skill's cooldown by 1.2 seconds whenever a projection attack hits an enemy. C2 increases his Elemental Mastery by 50 for every Chisel Light Mirror, aka Dangerous Biscuit, he generates. C4 can increase each each nearby party member's elemental mastery and can increase his Dendro damage bonus just by using his burst. His C6 allows him to receive a 10% crit rate and 70% crit damage bonus for 6 seconds when he generates a new mirror, so long as you have 3 mirrors already active. It also changes his burst so that he will generate 3 new dangerous biscuits 2 seconds after it's activated, regardless of how many biscuits are consumed when initiating his burst. So without testing him, here's how I would rank his constellations. His C1, I give 3 out of 5 biscuits. C2, 4 out of 5 biscuits. C4, 4.5 out of 5 biscuits. And for a C6, I think this is a solid 5 out of 5 biscuits. C3 and C5 are obviously also very good for Alhaitham, but I don't think they deserve any biscuits because everyone receives 3 additional levels to their skill and burst from them anyways. Well, let's keep this theme of ranking Alhaitham going. I tested and ranked 9 different weapons. To do this, I pitted Alhaitham against the Ion Blight Drake. I first tried not having anyone else in the group, but then my results were getting skewed because after a while, the Drake will start to fly around, and without a bow to knock it down, it takes a while before it lands again. So I decided to rethink how to best test these weapons. I know that in any Alhaitham team, you're going to want someone equipped with Deepwood Memories. This will reduce an enemy's Dendro resistance by 30% whenever the wearer's skill or burst damages them, but obviously I don't want someone else dealing a bunch of damage. Alhaitham also works best with an Electro Applicator as a teammate, so I decided to equip Shinobu with Deepwood Memories, but I built her for HP and healing in mind. I equipped her with my rank 12 Traveler's Handy Sword to help ensure she doesn't deal much damage. This will allow Alhaitham to stay healed, and because Shinobu regularly applies Electro and has Deepwood Memories equipped, this allows him to deal more realistic damage. Just keep in mind that this means the results won't reflect his raw solo Dendro damage, but I really doubt that many people are running around out there with only one character in their group anyways. Finally, I put Amber in with the Hunter's Bow and no artifacts, but when she got one shot before I could shoot down the Drake, I decided to use that one brain cell of mine and equip her with the recurve bow and pure HP artifacts instead. Okay, so you've probably been wondering what weapons I tested. I started at the bottom with the Dull Blade. Apparently 1-star items max out at level 70, and yes, I really did rank up this weapon just for this video. I would love to test out every weapon that I have, but I wanted to get this video out before his rerun. But based on how long it's taken me to get to this point, now I just hope to get this out before his rerun is over. Anyways, in addition to the Dull Blade, I tested as many relevant weapons that I could get to level 90. My Refinement 1 Dark Iron Sword, R5 Harbinger of Dawn, R5 Tokubu Shigiri, R4 Iron Sting, R1 Sipho's Moonlight, R5 the Black Sword, R5 Sacrificial Sword, and my R1 Skyward Blade. If you have a signature weapon, I'm pretty sure these results are irrelevant because it will likely outperform any of these weapons. But if you're like me, you don't have a signature weapon and just want to know what the second best option is for him. For the results, I decided to get an average of 3 runs for everything I tested in this video. I kept track of the highest single strike, highest damage, and how long each run took. And because I know that the level 93 Ion Blight Drake has 707,493 health, I was able to keep track of how much damage per second is being dealt. For all of the tests, I tried to refrain from boosting Alhaitham's burst damage by consuming his dangerous biscuits. Instead, I tried to maintain 3 dangerous biscuits for as long as possible. So with the Dull Blade, I averaged 76.86 seconds to down the Drake, and had an average of 9,320 damage per second, with 17,986 peak damage. So what's the best weapon for Alhaitham? I found that a Refinement 4 Iron Sting deals nearly identical damage per second as the Black Sword at Refinement 5. However, the Iron Sting can deal higher peak damage with an average of 26,007. So to no one's surprise, the Iron Sting is Alhaitham's best weapon. However, the Black Sword can be nearly identical in the end. In a close third, we have the Tokubu Shigiri. The 4th place Skyward Blade was also very competitive, but everything goes downhill from here. I figured I would test the Sacrificial Sword because I thought maybe it could be more competitive since it can help keep 3 dangerous biscuits active throughout the battle. But I was wrong. It placed 7, and I also had higher hopes for the 3-star Dark Iron Sword, but it performed pretty similarly to the Sacrificial Sword. So before I get to the best artifacts for Alhaitham, since you made it this far, please smash that like button. It lets me know it's worth all the time and effort it takes to make this type of video. And why not subscribe while you're at it? I would really appreciate it, and you would be helping me hit my goal of 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Okay, now let's get into the best artifacts for Alhaitham. Every artifact I tested is the best that I have to offer. So here's the list of artifacts I tested. I also kept track of Alhaitham's stats and weapons for everything I tested from here on out. So I just ran the same test as before, but added Sayu to the team when I tested 4-piece Gilded Dreams. I did this just to maximize the Gilded Dreams EM bonus. Also didn't want the Elemental Resonance to play a role in this test. I also ended up trying some variants of the best performers to really narrow down the best artifacts that I have for Alhaitham. Now let's get to the results. I'll just include the best variant of each combination for my rankings for this one. In 6th place we have 4-piece Deepwood Memories with the Iron Sting. On average it took me 57.05 seconds to destroy the Drake. With an average DPS of just under 12,500, the highest damage of about 19,000, the set is mediocre. However, I will say the only reason you would want to put this artifact set on Alhaitham would be if you don't want to put it on someone else in the party. There are cases where the set will work wonders, but I'll go over that when I get to the teams I tested. Coming in 5th place, the 4-piece Gladiators Finale with the Black Sword. Because I am always ranking up characters, I do a lot of boss fighting, so I've ended up with the set that works pretty well with Alhaitham. From here on out, the timings were very close. Here, it took 44.62 seconds on average to down the Drake. In 4th place with 43.87 seconds, the 2-piece attack percent and EM combination. This was closely followed by the 2x2-piece Elemental Mastery combo in 3rd place with 43.66 seconds. Keeping with this 2-set combination theme, in 2nd place is the 2-piece Deepwood Memories and EM combo with 43.58 seconds. All of these 2-set combinations were tested with the Iron Sting. And in 1st place, drumroll please, it's 4-piece Gilded Dreams. But wait, what's this? The Black Sword as the weapon? Coming out a whole 2 seconds faster on average than the 4-piece Gilded Dreams with Iron Sting combo, this combination with the Black Sword was the best artifact set that I tested. On average, it took 42.12 seconds for Alhaitham to down the Drake, with an average DPS of 16,849 and 20,797 peak damage. However, the highest average peak damage goes to the 3rd place combination, which is the same artifact combo that I used during the weapon testing. Now here are the results for every combination that I tried. The set that I had tested with the weapon testing is what I thought would come out ahead, but again, probably to no one's surprise other than me, the Gilded Dreams is the best artifact set for Alhaitham, and in my testing, I found the Black Sword is the best weapon for the set. So to keep things a bit more consistent with the group testing, I used this combination in all teams. The only exception is when I tested Deepwood Memories on Alhaitham in a full team. So that brings me to the best teams for Alhaitham. I tested Alhaitham in Hyperbloom, Quicken, Bountiful Cores, and Burgeon teams. So I'll only include the best in each category for this ranking. I also tried to use a variety of characters to show the different options. But let's see how varied the results ended up being, or if this is just another case of Xingqiu impact. In 4th place is this National Burgeon team with Alhaitham, Xiangling, Xingqiu, and Bennett. I've been working on my Emblem of Severed Fate set, so I finally got to test out this Elemental Mastery focused ESF build on Xiangling. She'll be the one triggering the Burgeon reactions, and because of her 4th constellation, she's pretty good in this role. I did test a group with Toma, but I only have him at rank 80 right now. Being as Dendro reactions scale off of character level, this could be why this national team ended up pulling ahead. In 3rd place is this Quick and Aggravate team with Alhaitham, Fischl, Beidou, and Baizhu. This team might fare better if I invested into Beidou more, but with an average clear time of 24.69 seconds, this team performed very well. I want to test some of these teams out in the Abyss, so if that's something you're interested in, don't forget to subscribe, and I might make a video on that. But let's carry on. In 2nd place is this Bountiful Core team with Alhaitham, Xingqiu, Baizhu, and Nilou. To be fair, I didn't end up testing out any other variations for this category, but they were still able to down the Drake in just 20.55 seconds. Out of the top 4 teams, this team had the highest peak damage of 30,943 across the board. They had an even more impressive average DPS of 34,433. However, the most consistent clear time goes to the 1st place, Hyperbloom. This team had an average clear time of just 16.59 seconds. At most, there was only a quarter of a second variation between runs. This team seriously surprised me. Their average DPS was 42,648, with a peak of 29,080. This peak damage from the Hyper Blooms was also consistent in all 3 runs. I thought that for sure this team with Nahida would be the best team for Alhaitham. I even tried a few different variations of Nahida's team in an attempt to make it more competitive, but Fischl had no intention of going down without a fight, and oh boy did she ever fight. I was able to reroll a few artifacts, so I admit that Fischl is pretty decked out right now. And because she helps trigger quicken and aggravate reactions more consistently, this helps out a ton. But I did try my hardest to find the best team, so here are all the teams that I tested. Another team that surprised me was this free-to-play team with Alhaitham, Barbara, Lisa, and the Dendro Traveler. They would actually do a lot better if Lisa were level 90, but I was still very impressed with this team. So you might be wondering what's happening way down here at the bottom. Well, I always like to think of a fun group or two to play, and in the overworld, I think this team is a lot of fun. It's a group made only of characters from Sumeru, Alhaitham, Dori, Collei, and Candace. With Candace being C6, she's a bit more useful in this team because Alhaitham's Dendro Infusion overrides Candace's Hydro Infusion. And with her C6 every 2.3 seconds, whenever a character affected by her burst deals elemental damage using normal attacks, she unleashes an explosive wave of Hydro in a small area around the active character. This allows her to be a little bit more consistent with creating blooms and Dendro cores, and being as Alhaitham is dealing Dendro damage with his normal attacks, this works pretty well. I won't go through every team, but I did want to point out this Quicken Aggravate team with Alhaitham, Fischl, Kirara, and Shinobu. This team didn't perform the best, far from it really, but if you need a shielder, this team works very well. You can do the same team without Kirara if you want to deal more damage. Not that Kirara isn't capable of dealing a decent amount of damage, but while off field, at C0 she doesn't provide anything other than a very strong shield. The Dendro Traveler can be a great option if you want a damage boost instead. Now the last team that I'll discuss is this Hyper Bloom team where I equipped Alhaitham with Deepwood Memories. If you remember from the artifact testing, this set placed 6th. So how was it able to do so well? Well, I took the best team I had found back to battle the Ion Blightdrake. This team originally had Xingqiu wearing Deepwood Memories, but this is a good example of why you might want to have Alhaitham equipped with this instead. It allows you to put the best artifacts on everyone else in the group. Now normally you want to have someone else equipped with Deepwood Memories, but with the same average peak damage as my first place team, and a nearly identical clear time and DPS, this shows that Deepwood Memories can be very useful on Alhaitham. It might even be able to outperform my first place team, if I had better artifacts. Well, there you have it. That's everything that I was able to test over the past 20 days. I've spent a lot of time with Alhaitham this year. I was able to get him on his very first banner in January. So here are my top 3 tips for Alhaitham. 1. Because it takes 2 seconds for Alhaitham to gain the Dendro Biscuits from his burst, you are able to switch characters, use their skill, then switch back to Alhaitham, and you can still obtain his Dendro Biscuits. 2. His best teammate is Shinobu, but if you don't have her, anyone that is able to consistently apply Electro to enemies while off field is a must for Alhaitham. This is because Alhaitham will deal the most damage from spread reactions. And 3. I learned that even if Alhaitham has pretty low crit rate and crit damage, he can still be very powerful, so long as you have enough elemental mastery to back it up. So when you're farming for Gilded Dreams and Deepwood Memories, be on the lookout for EM substats. I really like Alhaitham, and I was super excited when I finally got to play him. I really love how he is introduced in the storyline. Well, to be honest, I kinda love everything about him.
Don't mention it. To some extent, I want everyone to lead the lives they want to live.
I think his English voice actor is amazing. I love his design, personality, playstyle, and I really love that Kaveh is his roommate. Just everything about this character, I adore. But there are some downsides to Alhaitham. He is a pretty high investment character because you need to level up all of his talents to see his true potential. But he kind of makes up for that by being fairly easy to build and quite powerful at C0. So should you wish for Alhaitham? Well, judging by the fact that as of writing this sentence, Alhaitham's rerun starts in just 2 days, and it takes me a while to create videos, so you've probably already made your wishes. but to be honest, it's hard for me to say if you should wish for him over Kazuha. Kazuha is definitely more meta, but because I don't have him, I really can't recommend one over the other. All I know is that I absolutely love Alhaitham, and I'm really happy I was able to get him so early on. But for me personally, I'm going to be spending my wishes on Kazuha. However, I have a 50-50, so the odds aren't in my favor. I mean, just look at this. I have a 50-50 win rate of 25%. How does that even happen? You would think that 50-50 means there's a 50% chance to win and a 50% chance to lose, but oh yeah, I know why. I'm the IRL version of Bennett, so wish me luck on Kazuha's banner. I really hope that you'll have better luck than I have. Let me know who you wish for. Is your 50-50 win rate as low as mine? I can't wait to read your comments. Also, what do you think about Alhaitham's dangerous Dendro biscuits? Do they live up to the hype? While you're down in the comment section, smash that subscribe button and help me hit my goal of 10,000 subs by the end of the year. I seriously appreciate you for watching until the end. You truly are amazing. And just remember that you matter. I'll catch you in the next one. Subscribe.
If you want to live at a more leisurely pace, you can try copying a page or two from my book.